So let's now see some things about practicing motor skills. These insights are also important for cognitive skills because they can be generalized. Motor skills can be categorized in many different ways: open or closed skills, depending on the predictability of the environment and the need of the performers to adapt their responses or not. Open or closed loop controlled skills, depending on the ability of the central nervous system to control movement based on internal feedback, slow deliberate movements, or without concurrent feedback, ballistic movements. Ballistic movements are movements like throwing something, and there is no feedback, that is, after I release something, then I have feedback. I don't have feedback that allows me to make micro changes, and it's very dangerous to try to do changes while performing ballistic skills, by the way. Many people have very bad injuries, and in everyday activities like I close a door and then I remember that my keys are inside and I try to stop it, and this is the worst thing I can do. We also have fixed skills versus diverse skills depending on the modifiability of a given skill. You can find more information in Schmidt and Risberg 2008, McGill 2007. Furthermore, many skills can be treated in various ways. A varied skill can be treated as fixed and vice versa. An open loop controlled skill may be treated as a closed loop skill and vice versa, and so on and so forth. A practitioner, or indeed a performer who self-monitors their efficiency, might be overwhelmed by the sheer bulk of the different parameters they have to restrict, too many degrees of freedom once more. This is the reason that evaluations of motor skill capabilities and limitations, as well as the selection of progressive, functionally appropriate activities, should follow systematic guidelines. An example of such guidelines is Gentile's taxonomy of motor skills. And here you see an example of similar activities where learning might transfer. So let's see some things about random versus blocked practice of different skills. If we have one skill, then it's varied practice. And we also have things like serial practice in between, which is, so to say, not a random practice of different skills that I don't know what's coming next, but I know what comes next. Whereas in blocked practice, I just train one skill all the time. So, random versus blocked practice is one of the most well-researched topics in motor learning. It refers to the practice conditions where performers practice several different skills, and the choice to practice one skill at a time in a blocked way, or mix them and practice them in random order. Undoubtedly, sports, martial arts, music performing, etc. consist of a vast array of skills that should be practiced. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that both practitioners and performers wonder which method works best. Blocked practice seems the most potential candidate. Indeed, it leads to superior performance in practice, a well-known fact. And many researchers say that, like Simon 2008, Schmidt, and Bjork 1992. Alas, blocked practice leads to impoverished learning in contrast to random practice. So, blocked practice leads to better performing, not learning. Random practice, as Butin, Bladin 2010, Schmidt and Risberg 2007, McGill 2007 at least tell us, leads to better learning. This was shown both in laboratory settings as early as 1979 by Shi and Morgan, and in 1986 in real settings, training of badminton serves in 30 female subjects, see Good and McGill 1986. What differentiates random from blocked practice is the contextual interference effect or phenomenon. The contextual interference effect consists of a collection of findings showing that certain conditions that depress performance during practice produce more learning as measured by delayed tests of retention. Why delayed tests? Because if there is, for example, not 1 or 2 days between testing and the learning activity, maybe I'm just measuring performance and not learning. Learning is, we can define sometimes learning as performance in the future, because with block practice, I improve performance. So if I measure this very briefly after the protocol, after training, maybe I'm measuring just performance and not learning, which interests us. So some things about must and distributed practice. Must practice can be defined as a practice schedule in which practice is more than rest. More than rest. Or more generally, the interval between sessions or trials is very short, whereas for distributed practice, the opposite holds. How should practice be distributed to offer the maximum benefits and for the learners to acquire skills or refine the ones they already possess? Should they, for example, practice 5 hours in a row, or break it down into sessions of half an hour or 1 hour and do breaks in between? Research findings in general are straightforward. Both within and between session, distributed practice produces better learning, especially if sleep is intermediated for between session distribution. Daily practice is therefore optimum, or possible twice a day with an interval of a midday siesta. Now, what about whole and part practice? Whole practice is when I do a movement as a whole, for example, a whole tennis serve, and part practice is when I break it down into small segments. The only reason to practice a part of the movement and not the whole movement appears to be for simplification purposes. A learner might not be able to perform a difficult skill, whereas it should be easier to try a simplified version of the skill or just a part of the skill. Skills that are low in complexity and high in organization, discrete skills, such as a golf swing, are better practiced as a whole, and to the contrary, skills high in complexity but low in organization, serial skills, are better learned using the part practice method. So if a skill has easily identifiable discrete parts, you can use part practice for better results. Part practice might better be reserved for supplementing the extended practice of a skill or for children when initially facing extremely complicated skills for their capacities, such as a tennis serve. Most cognitive tasks may be viewed as serial skills, as for instance a speech may be. Let's now see some other forms of simplification. Simplification may be defined as the reduction of a complex task to more basic skills, that is, simpler movements and rhythmic patterns, or as the replacement of the said task with a similar but easier one. And here we may make a connection with similar activities and learning transference, and the photo we saw, the picture we saw about the possible transference of a skill to different sports. Slow practice, simulation practice, and mental imagery all have been found to be beneficial for different reasons to learning, and their effectiveness extends to more skilled performance, even to experts, who may supplement their training scheduled this way. So, preparatory exercises, that is, exercises that do not have direct relation to the sport or to the activity per se, like doing an adapted type of weightlifting that uses activities or movements that are a bit similar to your sport. Form exercises. This is how to train technique and how to train your form, how the technique is applied to your body. and performance exercises, that is, exercises that try to take technique and put it into action in real situations. All these three types of exercises are different. Success in any of these does not guarantee success in the other ones. It merely guarantees the basic ability to progress to the next level. So if you are good in form exercises, of course, this won't translate into being good in applying this technique while playing. Of course not. Okay. So if your technique is very good, your form is nice, so maybe you are ready to begin trying to apply this technique in action, but as a novice, not as an expert. No, not in no way. To make it even worse, there is still another catch. A direct result of the negative relation between performance, automatization, and form, technique, is that one will always have to go through preparatory exercises, form exercises, performance exercises, and of course actual competition again and again. There is no point where the need for example basics becomes obsolete. You will always have to go through preparatory exercises, form exercises, performer exercises, and in-field performance again and again. Another thing that is important here is that before you go through preparatory exercises, form exercises, and performer exercises, you have to develop the mental representation, the model of the activity you are going to learn. Without this, there will be no success in trying to develop anything. So what are the tools available to develop these super important cognitive models? The most famous one is athletic imagery, creating or recreating an experience in the mind, as Weinberg and Gould 1995 define. Weinberg and Gould go on to mention some impressive case study in order to show how effective imagery is considered to be. In one instance, the US Olympic ski team coach called off an imagery experiment when he realized that the group practicing imagery was improving so much that he felt everybody should reap the benefits of imagery. Imagery training techniques may be found in all classic sports psychology textbooks. Imagery, motor words, which we will see in the tools in the next section, or any other technique is more often than not a good standalone tool. However, one should notice that a major influence in performance comes from other sources as well. Self-perception, limiting beliefs, future plans and emotions are all examples of such influences. Emotions, for example, seem to directly affect motor skills, and many researchers have come to this conclusion. For example, Carta et al. 2013, Goldman 1995, Kano, Ito, and Fukado 2011, Latache 1998, Poletti et al. 2011, etc. So, what would be the solution to such a challenge? I firmly believe that it is high time practitioners in both cognitive and motor domains to introduce more holistic tools such as neuro-linguistic programming or cognitive behavioral therapy, just to name a few. NLP, as I have discussed elsewhere, is a thoroughly epistemonic approach to holistic therapy, because some people present it as a pseudoscience, which is not, of course. It's so vast, and it has so many tools, and so many models come from research that it's impossible to characterize it as a whole to be a pseudoscience. Sports science is not a pseudoscience, yet you see practitioners training people that have no idea about sports science, and what they do is pseudoscience because they say that what they do is based on science. Distal method is such a holistic approach, as well as the distal method coaching model, a novel approach to coaching I have developed. Other tools might include body dynamics, theater pedagogy, and priority therapy. The distal method coaching is a novel approach to learning. If learning is a relatively permanent change in knowledge, behavior, or understanding the results from experience, as Stratton and Hayes defined back in 1993, then learning anything from mathematics to tennis, as well as changing behaviors through the manipulation of limiting beliefs, ideas, plans, emotions, etc., should be attempted using not only classic teaching methods but therapeutic methods. Distal method coaching is a holistic approach to life, having as a central dogma that learning is a global, unified, and unifying phenomenon. Learning how to solve an equation, how to negotiate better, how to be happier, how to win tennis matches, everything is trainable. All these are skills to be acquired through therapy, not just instruction. I maintain that this is not a better way. It is the only way. The term therapy here is used in its classical epistemological context, as was used by philosophers such as Plato. See for instance the dialogue Harmidis. So, see you in the next video.